Hey everybody, if it's 3 o'clock and it's Tuesday, that means it's Tech Tuesday. Today's topic is broadband updates or broadband news. Be right back. Thanks for joining me. Rick Uzzi here with Tech Tuesday, and today's topic is just some recent stories that I've seen come up on broadband. I like to cover this every now and then. So this is good news. We've got Corning, which aims to cut fiber lead times by adding manufacturing capacity. We've seen lots of issues with supply chain problems in all kinds of industries, not just broadband. I mean, just trying to get a hold of a new or used car, because of chip issues, and you've got chip issues in broadband equipment as well, and you've got issues with fiber, getting a hold of the actual fiber that people are wanting to put in the ground, and there's a lot of demand for that obviously right now with lots of federal funds that are available now and that are coming. So it says here, operators across the telecom industry have flagged long lead times and other supply chain challenges as key hurdles to their network expansion plans. Corning, one of the largest suppliers of optical cable and fiber, told Fierce it believes the addition of greater production capacity at a new plant this year will free up room to meet increased demand in the U.S. and help slash lead times down to a more reasonable level. Bernhard Deutsch is VP and GM of Corning's optical fiber and cable business. He explained there are two primary issues causing supply chain disruptions: raw material shortages and manufacturing capacity constraints. While raw material shortages have posed some of the most serious disruptions to the industry's supply chains, Corning has countered this by securing secondary or alternative sources of necessary materials. In North America, though, Deutsch said capacity is the real problem. He added the issue in the U.S. specifically centers on the optical cable that houses the fiber as opposed to the fiber itself. So in other words, not necessarily the glass tube and it doesn't even need to be, it could be air, as we'll talk about here in a minute. But not necessarily the tube or the glass that the light is going through, but it's I don't know if it's dielectric or the outer coating of that is the real issue right now. Deutsch noted that facility in Poland is set to become operational this year. That's a new facility they built. And once that happens, it will free up U.S. fiber capacity for U.S. demand. He continued, as we and others in the industry add capacity, we expect lead times to begin improving. So it's not just Corning, but others that are trying to do the same thing. They see that they could be making a lot of sales right now, and they're not. While Deutsch didn't qualify the improvement expects to see, Corning SVP and GM of Optical Communications, Michael Bell, recently told the Associated Press that lead times are expected to fall dramatically as 2022 progresses. By 2023, he said wait times for most customers are going to be well under a year. And that tells you how bad it is right now, because it's not under a year. It's not well, and it's not under. Del Oro Group VP Jeff Hainan said while the analyst firm didn't have any official numbers to share, he's heard anecdotally that some smaller providers are currently facing lead times of 12 to 16 months. On Corning's Q4 earnings call, one analyst mentioned operators are up against waits as long as 24 months. So again, big demand on fiber right now, but this is good news in that they're all trying to ramp up capacity and production, and hopefully some of that will start to loosen up, and that's going to be really important, again, as we've got lots of federal dollars available now and even more coming in 2023. This is what I was talking about as far as you don't necessarily need to have that light going through actual glass. It could be going through air. Comcast Hollowcore fiber will be the foundation of 10G internet speeds. Comcast announced it's adopting advanced Hollowcore fiber to serve as the foundation for its faster 10G network, which will be capable of 10 gigabits per second internet speeds. And they are talking about symmetrical as that goes. That would be through DOCSIS 10G, DOCSIS 4.0 kind of technology. Comcast is the first internet service provider to adopt the fiber optic cable, which delivers fast internet speeds and lower latency network response. This real-world deployment, believed to be the longest deployment of Hollowcore fiber worldwide by an ISP, is a significant boost to Comcast network and will help it bring about 10G networking. In a test of the technology, Comcast connected 2 Philly locations with 40-kilometer hybrid fiber deployment of Hollowcore and traditional fiber. It's believed to be the longest such networking in the world. Unlike traditional fibers in which laser light travels over a solid glass core, Hollowcore fibers are empty inside with air-filled channels. Since light travels nearly 50% faster through the air than glass, data travels about 150% faster with up to 33% lower latency through Hollowcore fiber compared to traditional fiber. And they have a picture of it here, which looks a little bit different than this. It's kind of a general idea, but basically what you have is you've got your core here, kind of like a round core, and then you've got far more of these little, like this honeycomb arrangement with also some open voids in there as well. So there's a lot more of these in here, and then you've got this kind of round area where at the center core where there's just basically air. It could be a gas of some kind, but I think air is what's used. And then the light beam laser travels through that core like that. So it's not traveling through glass, so there's going to be less attenuation. You know, if you're just going through air, it's going to be traveling more easily. Not going to attenuate. Now, one of the things that was a problem with this technology was you could do this, but you couldn't really control the light. You couldn't amplify it if you were not using glass. But they figured out ways to do that where they basically increase the number of molecules in kind of set areas along that path, and that's how they can control the light as it passes through that. So that's the way that they can amplify that signal, for example. Because generally when you go on long fiber runs, you get to a certain point and the light it's just not going as far, and you've got to amplify it. Well, with this Hollowcore, it goes a lot further, but then you can also amplify it using this technology of, again, adding in molecules of air in set places. So you can amplify it, you can actually slow it down, and you can even, I believe, encode data doing that. Comcast successfully tested bidirectional transmission, upstream and downstream traffic, traveling on a single fiber. So they're using going in both directions, and this would mean using something like full duplex, probably with DOCSIS 4.0 kind of specification, doing full duplex, sending data in both directions in the same path, not over different frequencies like they would do on their DOCSIS plan. They used coherent and direct detect systems, allowing for forward and backward technology compatibility, and produced traffic rates ranging from 10 gigs per second up to 400 gigs per second, all simultaneously on a single strand of Hollowcore fiber. That's pretty amazing. Hollowcore fiber could support network virtualization, telemedicine, augmented and virtual reality, and other emerging services moving forward. Comcast is exploring opportunities to strategically deploy Hollowcore fiber in select core and access network deployments. So right now they are looking at this as more of a backbone kind of technology to increase the distances they can travel, the amount of data they can carry, decreasing the latency. All of that's good. Latency is very important for some of these applications that they mentioned here, virtual reality, telemedicine. So if you can reduce the latency, again, because you've got less attenuation as this light travels down the fiber, then this is a big deal. Cox to offer symmetrical 2 gig service. So we're talking about 2 gigs here with Cox. Cox Communications, the latest service provider to announce symmetrical 2 gig service. Although there have been numerous symmetrical 2 gig announcements from telecom companies with fiber broadband infrastructure, there have been fewer announcements from the cable companies because it's more challenging to deliver symmetrical multi-gigabit speeds using the DOCSIS HFC infrastructure that cable companies rely on. And as I mentioned, DOCSIS 4.0 includes this full duplex component where you can do symmetrical service over the same path. It's more complicated to do, but it can be done. So Cox said this week that it will begin offering the 2 gig symmetrical service in neighborhoods across its footprint this month. It offered no details, such as whether the service will be underpinned by HFC or fiber infrastructure. So they didn't say originally whether they're doing this over their HFC plant and doing something like full duplex, or are they just doing this in fiber deployments that they're doing. So I found out later that this is actually these are fiber deployments. So they're not talking about doing this right now on their HFC or their DOCSIS plant. I thought originally it probably was HFC doing full duplexes. They're talking about neighborhoods across its footprint, but I think they're probably talking about new neighborhoods or maybe edging out in areas where that's kind of their service area, and probably not overbuilding. They could be overbuilding. I mean, it's very possible they could be doing kind of a parallel deployment in places where if a customer wants the 2 gig service, they're on the DOCSIS, that Cox could come in and give them fiber service kind of on a one-off basis on those that request that maybe want to upgrade, so to speak, to fiber. So that could be part of what's going on as well. I know that, who is it? Hiawatha Broadband. Hiawatha Broadband is doing that. Is when they're overbuilding, they are doing kind of a dual deployment And for existing customers, they give them the opportunity to upgrade if they want to the fiber service. Company said in February that it planned to invest billions of dollars to upgrade its network to support multi-gigabit symmetrical service using a combination of fiber to the premise and DOCSIS 4.0. So they're still planning on doing DOCSIS 4.0, and they're still planning on increasing the speeds that they have over their HFC plant, but they are also going to be looking at these deployments of fiber. And they're announcing this, I'm sure, this 2 gig symmetrical service to get their name out there as somebody that can do 2 gig symmetrical service, even though they're maybe not doing it on HFC right now. They want to make sure that they don't get left behind in the marketing wars on symmetrical service. It talks about some other announcements here that operators have done about providing gig service, that kind of thing. Verizon adds 194,000 fixed wireless customers in Q4. This is a big deal. And what they're showing here is Verizon's millimeter wave technology, which they are not talking about in this particular article, at least not the vast majority of these. I'm sure they had some growth in millimeter wave customers, but the vast majority of this is going to be C-band, not millimeter wave. In this millimeter wave scenario, this is where you would have to have line of sight. So you have something like a patch antenna on the outside of the window, and that has to have line of sight to a microcell, because with millimeter wave you have to have lots of microcells that all have line of sight to each other, because you're doing speeds of a gig and more on millimeter wave. So it travels very fast, but it doesn't travel very far, and it doesn't go through walls. So their solution was to have this antenna on the outside, and then it comes inside to a wireless router that then gets it throughout the house. Verizon Communications reported 195,000 net additions for its new fixed wireless access service, driving the wireless company to its best home broadband quarter in a decade, with a total of 229,000 high-speed internet customer adds. So that tells you right there. They're talking about all of their home broadband, so that would include their Fios fiber offering. So a total of 229,000 new broadband adds, and 194,000 of those were fixed wireless, using most likely, again, the vast majority of those C-band. And this is not a one-off. You can see from current broadband trends that the demand for fixed wireless is extremely high and growing, Verizon CEO Hans Vestberg said. The FWA, fixed wireless access growth, exceeded analysts' consensus forecasts and represented strong growth over the 78,000 fixed wireless subscribers they added in the fourth quarter of 2021, as well as 17,000 tacked on in the first quarter of last year. So you can really see the significant growth. And a lot of that has to do with them accessing the C-band spectrum. So they did not have that before. So they were going out to urban areas and deploying the millimeter wave, doing the small cells, and getting this very fast service to a limited number of people. Again, in urban areas, because you need the line of sight, you got to have a lot of customers close together to be able to kind of make that work financially as well as physically. I mean, you can't really do millimeter wave. It's not practical if you've got long distances. So a lot of this growth took place after they bid in the C-band auction and got that spectrum awarded to them, and then launched that earlier this year, in like the end of January, early February. Driven by proliferation of its C-band network, Verizon predicts it will be able to offer 5G fixed wireless service to 50 million households and 14 million businesses by the end of 2025. And to give you, just to put that in perspective, people say that they don't know, they say 30, what do we have, maybe 30 million, 20 to 30 to 40 million, somewhere in that range of people that they say don't have broadband access, which would mean, or they consider unserved. And that would be, I think that's counting people that maybe are less than 25 by 3. So you can see here that they would exceed that. Now, obviously, a lot of these areas that they could cover are going to be in areas that are already served from other service providers. This is fixed wireless, so it goes everywhere where they happen to have the antenna infrastructure. So it's serving people in both unserved and served areas. And then we've got this story about fixed ISPs lose $10.5 billion in revenue to cord cutters, analysts find. So this is not video cord cutting they're talking about here. This is broadband, fixed wire broadband cord cutting. So we're just talking about fixed wireless access and the success that Verizon is having there. Well, some of these ISPs are losing their fixed wired broadband customers. This is new research from Parks Associates that found the number of broadband cord cutters in the U.S. has risen over the past year, with operators missing out on billions in revenue as a result. Now, we did have a pandemic where a lot of people came back to fixed broadband. Maybe they had cut the cord or they never got the cord, and then suddenly they found themselves at home having to do work from home and having kids having to do work from home. And it's like, wow, we need a broadband connection. So this could be people cutting that back on that. They got home, their kids got home, they got fixed broadband, fixed wired broadband, and now they're cut back to just mobile only. There could be some of that going on. The firm's latest figures show there are now 13.9 million home internet cord cutters in the country, up from just over 12 million in March 2021. As last year, consumers cited high costs as the primary reason for dropping their fixed service. Parks Associates noted the average monthly cost of home internet, including both standalone and bundled service, is now $116. That compares to standalone service of $64 and a fixed mobile broadband bundle cost of $128 per month as of June 2021. Beyond cost, around 50% of consumers said they prefer using the mobile internet or their mobile devices for broadband access as their reason for cutting the cord. Other reasons for cancellation included issues with a former service provider, failure to sign up for service following a recent move, a lack of access to home internet services, and low internet usage. So you can see this, people now sitting on the couch with their phones. If they've still got traditional video, maybe that's why. Because I think if they're doing a lot of streaming and they want to stream to the, well, yeah, if they want to stream to the big TV, it could be with 5G service they can get these things done now. So, but a lot of people say they just don't have the need. Maybe they moved and they realize, wow, we don't need to go hook up a wired connection. My phone's working just fine. And again, that's because maybe they're doing a lot of what they're doing their work in the office. The kids are doing their school at school, and there's not that much need for home broadband. Still, plenty of other consumers are looking to upgrade their service to gigabit speeds and add on additional services. Parks Associates found half of U.S. internet households currently get at least one additional service from their network provider. That's very important. If you're a broadband service provider, you want to try to layer on other services so that they have a reason, and make you more sticky, have a reason maybe to keep your service. So that could be providing a bundle of voice. It could be providing a bundle with mobile phone service. You don't necessarily have to do that yourself. You can get a virtual kind of mobile service from one of the large providers. It could be IPTV. In fact, if you have a need for that, look to us. We offer a IPTV service you can offer over your broadband service. We have a voice over IP service you can offer, where you do very little of the work. We take on the lion's share of that. And you can offer residential and commercial VoIP, or you can offer a linear IPTV solution, all for very little cost relative to what it would be to build on your own, and really no equipment. So it says here, consumer intention to upgrade their home internet service remains at an all-time high, Hannah concluded. ISPs must elevate their value proposition or risk losing their customers to competitors. So again, you don't want to be a dumb pipe. So call us. You'll see our phone and email info and our website address here at the end. Let us know if we can help you. We do have managed services that you can offer over your broadband service that will increase the value to your customers. So that's always important to do. We've got senators to Rosenworcel. Communities need clarity in RDOF. That's the Rural Development Opportunity Fund. Rosenworcel, that's Chairman Rosenworcel of the FCC. In a letter to FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel, a bipartisan group of senators expressed concern about ongoing issues surrounding the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, or RDOF. Several communities are still awaiting answers on the authorization status of their RDOF provider's application, and are concerned that the delay and lack of clarity could prevent them from receiving other federal funds. So their concern here is that the RDOF auction took place a long time ago, and the FCC declared who won the auction in all of these different census blocks, but they haven't awarded all of the funds, and in some cases they're kind of fuzzy on whether some of these organizations are going to be able to get the funds. So you might be in a particular service area where a service provider has won a commitment, or they won the auction to provide broadband in that area, but if that never goes through, people are concerned that then future federal funds, if that's kind of up in the air, future federal funds are not going to be awarded or going to be allowed in those areas. It's going to be considered served. So that's the concern of several of these senators. Communities in our states need clear and timely guidance from the FCC to help them to understand the federal funding resources available to them and their eligibility to access different federal resources in order to leverage these historic investments in broadband, reads the letter. That was signed. You can see here it's very bipartisan. You got Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat, Tina Smith, Democrat, Joe Manchin, Democrat. Now these are moderates. I know Amy and Joe Manchin are moderate. Shelley Moore, Capito, West Virginia, John Thune in South Dakota, Roger Wicker in Mississippi, and Jerry Moran in Kansas. Specifically, the senators outlined 3 questions for the chairwoman. First, they requested an update on the FCC's efforts to default bids of entities that failed to demonstrate eligible telecommunications carrier designation, or ETC designation. So if you were going to accept these RDOF funds, you had to become an eligible telecommunications carrier, an ETC, so that you could offer voice service over that. And you'd have to contact your state and get all of that stuff in place within a certain amount of time from the point that you were notified that you had won. And there have been some that have defaulted on that, and they just want to get status on that. Second, they asked whether the FCC is coordinating with other federal agencies charged with distributing broadband funds, such as the NTIA, Treasury Department, and USDA. And third, senators asked how the FCC will redistribute funds and address the lack of service in areas where a long-form bidder is rejected. That's a question I've had, and I've tried to get an answer from the FCC on that, and I haven't been able to. So apparently the senators, I guess, have not been able to get an answer either. So I feel a little bit better now about reaching out and not hearing from anybody on that. But that's a question I have, is that as these long-form bidders are rejected and you've got this territory that's just sitting out there open, what's the next step? Who goes in there? Does the second place bidder go in there and get that? Or is it then going to be opened up in phase 2 of the RDOF auction? I don't think there's been anything stated about that, so they're trying to find out there. In response, Rosenworcel reassured lawmakers that the Commission is working expeditiously to address a range of oversight issues that caused initial funding to be designated for questionable locations and to unqualified bidders. One of the issues that people have is something like Starlink. That's another kind of fuzzy area where Starlink won quite a few of the census blocks, and Starlink is the low Earth orbit satellite offering from SpaceX. So they bid in locations, and basically they were just looking at the map and saying, let's see what's open, and they bid on places. And some places it was literally, like it might be an airport parking lot that didn't need broadband, but it was open, and Starlink already had a satellite up in the air, or satellites, their constellation up in the air that could serve that area, so they bid on it. So there's that question, and then a lot of, there's the question with Starlink of, what is it that they do with the support that they're going to get? So the way the auction worked with RDOF, it's a reverse auction, and each service provider would bid on census blocks, and they would, in this reverse auction, they would say how much support they would accept in order to build out broadband infrastructure there, and then that amount, people would bid and the amount would go down. So it's like, well, I'll do it for 60% support. Okay, I'll do it if I'll get only 50% support. Okay, if I only get 40% support, I'll do it. So that was basically how that worked. But in that case, you've got a let's say somebody's going to do fiber, and they've won an RDOF, so they're going to have to go out. When you do the RDOF deployment in a census block, you've got to go out, and then you've got to run fiber to every single, or at least be able to get, you've got to run fiber to every single home passed, basically, that you've got. You've got to be able to deploy that service so that if somebody were to call you and say, hey, I'd like internet, you got to be able to address that within like 10 days. So you can't be going out and doing lots of deployment services, at the last minute. You basically have got to get your service out there to everybody that is a serviceable location. Well, for satellite service, it's the infrastructure is already up there. If he's got his satellite constellation up there and it can hit that whole census block, then that's sunk cost. So he doesn't need to do anything in addition, other than he's got to provide the terminal for the customer. That's the little satellite dish. And those are expensive. It's got a phased array antenna in it, so it's not so that it can track the satellites as they go across the sky. It's not using a motor. So this phased array uses electronics to just follow that satellite across the sky, and then it picks up the next one and follows it so that there's no interruption. So it's expensive. They started out at like $3,000. They announced at one point they got it down to like $1,300. Then they announced that by the end of the year they would get it down to half that, so maybe it's $650 now. And just recently, Starlink raised the price of that so that if you want to get their service, it used to be $500, it was like $499, and it went up to $599. So now it's like $600 if you want that. So it sounds like maybe they got the cost where they're just now covering their cost of that terminal unit. Well, maybe the support that they get will go towards, and can only be for deployment, it's not for the overall operation of the service. So maybe that's going to go towards defraying the cost for the end user of this equipment so that they can get people installed more affordably. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it still remains to be seen whether Starlink's going to get any money. And if they don't, where does that money go? Or who's then going to cover those census blocks, and how does that work? So that's a big question for these senators as well as for me. The chairwoman, let's see, to date, the commission has announced over $5 billion in funding in 47 states to bring broadband over 2.8 million locations. Put this progress in context, the $5 billion approved for funding is more than 3 times what was approved for the entire Connect America Fund Phase 2 auction, which was the largest broadband reverse auction before RDOF. The chairwoman added that the FCC has so far resolved 360 of the 417 long-form applications that were filed. So they've gotten a lot of them out, but there's still quite a few that are still pending. On the subject of interagency collaboration, Chairwoman Rosenworcel reassured inquiring senators that as per the 2021 agreement regarding broadband deployment funding, the FCC, NTIA, and RUS share information on a regular basis about our respective funding programs, including the entities seeking and receiving funding to provide service in a given area, the speed and technology funded, and the terms and conditions of the funding under the law. Further, she confirmed that the areas where a winning bidder's long-form application were denied are deemed by the Commission to be eligible for other funding. So in other words, if an area has been denied, it is eligible for other funding. But a question I have again is whether it's been denied, is it eligible for RDOF? And then who goes in there and does that? Or is she just saying that if it's been denied today, then later when the IIJA funds become available, then that area will be available for funding? That's certainly the case. And a lot of this, as far as they're working together, has to do or came about from the IIJA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, because specifically in there, NTI has put over all of kind of the disbursement, or not the disbursement, but the management of all of that. So they are now interacting with all of these agencies like the FCC and RUS and others to try to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then finally, I thought this was interesting. It's very future to me. I thought it was kind of cool. T-Mobile to support high-rise window washing drones. T-Mobile said today that it will provide connectivity for drones to be used for washing high-rise windows and other cleaning applications. The drones will initially be used for high-risk facilities maintenance work like exterior soft wash cleaning and high-rise window washing. Companies also envision using T-Mobile connectivity to fly drones beyond line of sight and to power more data-intensive capabilities such as video streaming. So I don't know how much of this is just somebody manually using the drone and washing the windows, or if eventually this will be robotic. That's where it's really kind of future. You can just imagine, a science fiction movie where, again, you've got drones flying around doing various things. They could be delivering packages. In this case, they might be on, flying around a building, washing the windows and the walls. Lucid and T-Mobile see the drones offering commercial property management firms as a much safer alternative than traditional exterior soft wash cleaning and high-rise window washing, which include expensive liability insurance, premiums, and equipment fees. In addition to high-rise buildings, the companies expect the next generation of drones to be able to offer exterior washing for outdoor stadiums and arenas, hotels, and university structures. I'm thinking at some point this is going to have to be literally not remote controlled drones, but computer program drones that are just going to go around and wash an entire stadium as they do this, and they'll be using this this T-Mobile service. Again, they don't need to have line of sight to some remote controller. They would just be using the cellular network to fly around and determine where they are. And again, it mentions here IoT technology. I think of that as something not remotely controlled, but something that's just on the internet doing its thing. So IoT technology will provide the drones with critical operational information, including real-time sharing of flight data, battery utilization information, hardware diagnostics, and delivery of firmware and software updates. Because again, these drones are not only going to have to know where they are as they're cleaning this building, but where the other ones are so that they don't all crash into each other. So there's going to be some data sharing there going on real time. T-Mobile for Business will initially provide 4G LTE connectivity to Lucid Drone Technologies and industrial spraying drones, with 5G available at an undetermined future date. So, and that's my guess there would be that just the drones don't support 5G yet. So these drones must have radios in them, and maybe they're just 4G capable right now. And when they get 5G in there, then they'll be able to leverage that network as well. So anyway, that's what's happening today or recently. So I hope this was interesting. If so, please give me a like on the video. go ahead and subscribe. You can go down in YouTube and there's a subscribe button. You can click there, click the little bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. There's also a little subscribe button down on this side of the bottom video right there. You can click on and get subscribed as well. So thanks a lot. I will see you next time for Tech Tuesday, but I will see you for broadband deployment news tomorrow, not at a particular time. So make sure you're subscribed, click the little bell, and you'll be notified when I'm live. Take care. Bye-bye.